Hey, we're back. I'm Largo. That's Will over there. Hey, Will.
Hey, how's it going? I wasn't muted.
You're not? No, it's true.
Okay.
Came right on cue. I am no longer just Largo. I am now Largo, Guatemalan Gremlin Wrangler, and Chaos Engineer. Hopefully, we can get through an entire recording without me glitching out. We'll see. Stay tuned. This is the Infinite Playlist, and we have a banger, as our buddy Ted from Hella Dope likes to say. Let's introduce our guest, shall we?
We shall.
Unless you have some words of wisdom or nothing deep. All right. Jeff.
All right. How's it
What's
going,
up, guys? Thanks for having me
Although
on.
you always, yeah, man. Although you always look like you're mean mugging the camera, you're really a nice guy. I don't want people to be intimidated. It's the beard.
The beard's coming back, so yeah.
It's awesome.
Slow but surely.
Speaking of epic playlist, my friend, we are
Thanks,
loving it.
Yeah.
Love
Very
it.
cool.
Man, I'll tell you, I always say this, that the one thing I love about music, it's completely subjective, and it's what gets you going, and it's healthy junk food for the soul.
Yeah.
You know, I can
Good
come
way
to
to
work
put
in
it.
the morning and I can just be not into it, and I'll just throw on something on my iTunes and bam, I'm ready to roll.
Sweet. Well, let's check out your music dossier, shall we?
Sure.
We've been having fun with this one. You know, we'll get the list and I'll put it together, and then I'll send it to Will, and we both were like, "Oh man, this is awesome." So
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff, some familiar stuff, some things I've never heard of. And
Yep.
one, which I won't tell you until we get to it, I guess, is one of my new favorites. I really love one
Oh,
of
I
the
can't wait to see which
list.
one.
Yeah, it's one of the ones, and one that really just threw me. It's pretty funny. I got confused when I was looking it up, and unfortunately, I didn't have time to finish it. But yeah, some really good stuff there, and a lot of things. Like a lot of times, I try to I'll notice like a theme or like a through line in all of the songs that you chose.
Right on.
And I guess we'll talk later about what my impression of like the through line and everything that you chose. But do you have, or am I looking into something that's not there? Did you just pick songs that you like, or is there,
No,
something-
that's a really great question. Like, I wouldn't even say like all of these bands are my favorite bands of all time, or these songs are my favorite songs of all time. But I would say that these songs here, maybe most recently within maybe the last 4 years or so, which has been wildly tumultuous time for everyone, that these are some of the ones that I've really focused on, played, because maybe some of them are callbacks to when I was a lot younger. Some of them are ones that I just love really a lot. But I love all types of music, metal probably being my favorite, probably doom metal, my most favorite. But these songs here are just ones that when Largo asked me to do this, thank you, Largo, I wanted to just come up with 10 songs, and I thought, what 10 songs can I come up with? So I kind of just looked on my iTunes, and these are the ones that I've played quite a bit lately. So
okay, yeah,
that's
and
what I
that
came up with.
changes as you mature and grow, and times change.
yeah.
You kind of change your favorite songs. I've done it multiple times, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah.
You know, everybody tries to pigeonhole stuff in a genre. A lot of this to me is more thrash metal, There's definitely some death metal going on.
Yep.
One thing I see as a through line is storytelling. A lot of these bands, when they put out a song, it's part of an epic story. The
For
song,
sure.
the cover album, art, it's all telling, you know, something epic.
Yeah, you know, one of my favorite bands of all time is Mastodon. And we'll get to Blood and Thunder when we get to it, but Mastodon's been notoriously famous for they're more, to me, more of a prog metal band, but they've been notoriously famous for doing concept albums. So we'll talk about obviously Blood and Thunder when we get to that, but I love a good concept album.
Black Sabbath, yeah, definitely in that genre as far as good storytelling, the kind of stuff you can put on the LP and just let it go. Start from the beginning, go all the way through.
Right on. Yep. You know, it's funny about Black Sabbath to tell you why that's on here. That is probably the first metal song I can remember hearing as a kid. So I think the album came out in like 1980, maybe. So I would have been, it was like their 9th studio album, came out in 1980. Ozzy had just left the band like a year and a half, 2 years earlier. And Dio had came over from that band Elf that he was in the 70s, which I did not know anything about that until much later on in my life. But the reason that this is on here is because this is one of the first music videos that were metal that I can remember watching on MTV as a kid. It was on the Headbangers Ball in like 83.
Yeah.
Headbangers Ball, man. I had forgotten about that. Great show.
My older brother Matt was a huge Dio fan, so he had all the cassettes, and you know, you'd go and pull them out from under his bed when he wasn't there, and you'd look at the cover of the cassettes, and the cover of Holy Diver was such an awesome.
Did he have like the black briefcase that you pop open and get all the cassettes laid out?
The vinyl one, like one you bring in the car. Yeah.
Yep.
But Heaven and Hell is one of my favorite songs from Black Sabbath. Dio's my Black Sabbath because that was how he was kind of like my gateway drug to metal. Dio was.
You know, and it's funny. I've talked to guys who are like love Dio as a soloist. And it's like, did you know about the Black album, the Black Sabbath stuff? It's like, that's classic, man.
Only made 2 albums with the band, and both albums are great, and they age really, really well, in my opinion. I mean, there's some really good songs. Neon Nights probably could have easily been on this list for me as well. But Heaven and Hell is my, just when that opening riff comes on, you know what that song is.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing, I don't know if a lot of people know about Dio. Dio apparently was the one that started the Moloch or the devil horns.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And if you watch the video for Heaven and Hell, he throws that out there, and he talked about it on a documentary. Like, his grandmother was Italian, and she would do the Moloch. And yep.
I did not know that.
Oh, before we go on, Jim, I did want to mention, I forgot to mention it before we started, but for everyone viewing at home, there is a way you can listen to this show that does enhance it significantly. Woo. And that is that Jim prepared a playlist of all of these songs, and all you have to do is open yourself up another browser tab, click on that playlist, turn that volume down just enough so you could hear us talking and hear the music at the same time. And you might have to do a little bit of work and stop or play the songs because they're not going to sync up perfectly with what we're talking about. But listening to the song while we're talking about it really does enhance the viewing pleasure. I do it every time when we watch the replays, and it really does help.
Right, and doing it that way keeps us from getting frowned upon by the copyright gods. So that's how we do it.
It's the only way you could hear it while we're talking about it. But yeah, it's a great way to do that. And I just wanted to mention
link in the description below, along with the link to Jeff's channel, Skunkworks Studios.
Yes.
Awesome.
So anything else about Black Sabbath?
No, great song. Great song. I mean, I think this is also one of the only songs that he actually wrote by himself without Tony Iommi on this, I believe.
Okay.
And another fun fact, Dio was introduced to Tony at the Rainbow Bar and Grill in California by Sharon Osbourne.
Wow.
To be the lead singer. So we all know the Rainbow Bar and Grill is famous for one person, right? Lemmy Kilmister would sit there and play slots all day long and smoke cigarettes and drink Jack. And yeah, and that guy,
the Rainbow
Motorhead
was kind of to heavy metal what CBGB
Oh,
was to punk, you know.
Yeah, Motorhead could easily made it onto this as well.
Oh yeah,
but we could do a separate episode about just Motorhead.
I was going to say, and there's also it's not just a one-time thing. You could always come in and do another list.
Oh yeah, you've got an open invitation. We're gonna have some guys back in the in 2024. We're going to be doing some second playlists from some of our favorites. So you're certainly welcome to come back and do another 10.
I would totally for sure do that. Here we go.
Slayer, another good deep cut. It's not one that's usually on the top of my playlist, but I like Slayer.
Yep. Yeah, Slayer is one of those fantastic bands. Obviously in the 80s, in the thrash metal scene coming out of San Francisco, Oakland Bay area, where they emerged from, and Metallica. You also had Megadeth, which is kind of like Dave Mustaine leaving Metallica, forming Megadeth, and then you had Anthrax, and that was like the big four that all were like the thrash gods, but Slayer, to me, them and Megadeth were my two favorite. I love this album, Seasons of the Abyss. It was probably the first album of theirs that was super approachable for people who maybe weren't into super heavy stuff, right?
That's fair.
Yeah. The video for this was the first music video that Slayer made. So on Headbang, I remember seeing it debut on Headbangers Ball, and it's awesome. And again, this is probably not even the best song on that album. Like War Ensemble and Dead Skin Master, both fantastic. What I do love about Slayer, they got heavier as after each album. They got so heavy. Like I think it was Diabolus. I can't remember the name of that album. That album was so heavy I couldn't even listen to it. I'm like, this album's just too much.
I remember the moment I heard the song for the first time, and that was in I was in this chick named Becky's Chrysler LeBaron with the wood panel sides, a convertible, and we were riding. She was giving us a ride home from a party, and she put this on, and I was like, "What is this?" And she was like, Slayer. And
man.
I need Slayer. And went and picked up the album and listened to it like that entire, winter. I think it was almost winter. Yeah. But it was like, this was on nonstop in my basement where I lived.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Again, I think with Slayer, I mean, the intro to this song is, if you're a metalhead, it's super recognizable. You understand what that song is the minute it comes on. I mean, it starts off so slow, and then it just boom kicks in. And I've seen them in concert maybe twice, and those guys are wicked intense. I mean, Kerry King is he got crazier as time passed too. I mean, that guy was like,
and that was kind of an evolution where you had, at first metal was all partying, smoking, drinking, and then it started, like with these, they're very much into, deep storytelling, whether it's a personal story or a commentary on the situation in society.
It was it's the thing about Slayer is their music's like still relative today. The stuff from I think that's the case with a lot of those thrash metal bands of the 80s. Their stuff ages perfectly, like Black Sabbath, before, like it ages perfectly. You could introduce a metalhead, a young kid today who might be into that new metal or whatever they're into.
I know it sounds weird, but like Slayer instrumentally, it puts me in like a trance state. Like I sit there and just listen to it. It's one of the few bands that does that. Like I know a lot of bands make you want to like, thrash, I guess, bang your head or whatever, but I just sit there and I just absorb it because it's so like, just, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to explain it or put it into words, but Slayer,
and there's a lot of other songs of Slayer's that are probably better than Seasons, but it's just a great song. It's commercially approachable. It can be radio friendly. And again, like Sabbath was for me, Dio Sabbath. This is kind of I think a great gateway drug song.
It is
a gateway drug song, but a gateway song for metalheads. So yeah, I love it.
Excellent. Looked like looks like Largo's in one of in an abyss of sorts.
He's in his own abyss. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just around the same time though, you got Rust in Peace, Megadeth, man. Oh
right,
my God.
Dude. These both came out in, believe, 1990. That was a great year for music. Rest in Peace came out. Now, I had been a decent Megadeth fan prior to this, but this album in particular was awesome. I was super stoked when it came out. I got it on cassette. I bought the poster at Spencer's Gifts. The poster. I mean, the poster or the cover of that album. Tell me that's not relative today, right? Oh, does that just fit in 2023 perfectly?
And I remember, I think it was Holy Wars. My friend had it on tape, and he put it on my. We were like in lunch, and he let me listen to it. He's like, "You got to hear this." And it was,
dude, that album. Every song is great on that album. I love the Five Magics off of that. That song wasn't my favorite at the time. I'm going to say Polaris probably was. Maybe Hangar 18 because of the connotations behind it with aliens and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Hangar 18 and all that jazz. Holy War is great, but I love Five Magics because I was always into Dungeons and Dragons.
Of course.
I was always into sword and sorcery. And that song, even today, still, I love it. Every Halloween, I have a full-on wizard outfit.
Oh, that's awesome.
That my mom sewed me. And I hand out candy as the Wizard of Candy. And I play Five Magics as my hype song before I go give out candy, along with Purple Magic from the guys from Workaholics. And
very nice.
Yeah, great. And Megadeth's one of my favorite all-time bands. After this album, they got a little more softer, radio friendly with Euthanasia, and I can't remember the other album after that. Countdown to Extinction. And after that, each subsequent album was a little bit weaker. But I think this is their best album of all time.
This is peak, This is definitely
peak. 1990 was a peak thrash, right?
Yeah.
So many great albums. Stuff. Yep.
Oh yeah. Kick ass. And then Five Magics, and he put some additional stuff here. Rocks hard with their epic song Five Magic, which takes a wild turn into the mystical world of fantasy and adventure. The lyrics tell a tale of our hero stuck in a land ruled by a cruel and oppressive leader, but this brave soul has a plan to overthrow the tyrant and seize the throne. So he embarks on a quest to master 5 deadly magics. But as he gets closer to his prize, the power starts to corrupt him, turning him into the Dark Lord himself. Will the hero be consumed by his thirst for power, or will he rise above it all? Only Megadeth will know for sure. Yeah, just so epic. So
age-old tale. And Largo had messaged me and told me that it was based on a book, and I didn't even know that, right? So I wasn't that deep into the meaning of those songs back in 1990. But right here we go. Five Magics. Yeah. Lyndon Hardy. What a great song, man. Yeah, give me alchemy, give me sorcery, give me wizardry, thermatology. Yeah.
In the song, they used electricity as the 5th magic. In the book, it's a little bit different, but definitely you can see where the inspiration is. I haven't read this, but now that I
want to.
I probably will.
To. Yeah.
It's funny. My son, we got a book for him called The Wizard. And if you guys have ever, I'll post it on my Instagram or something, the cover of it, if anyone wants to read it. But it's a kid's book, and it's really good. But I used to read it to him a few years ago before bed, and then I'd just break into Five Magics after that.
Nice.
Bestow upon me knowledge, wizard. So great, man. Yeah. And that song, too, starts off so awesome, too. And then, Megadeth and Mustaine was such a freaking guitar god, too.
Oh, I mean,
and he was a black belt in karate, and he was all these other wacky things. Like Dave Mustaine, he's super smart, super well read. He had a little bit of an alcohol and drug problem, got him kicked out of Metallica, but he basically
that's common for these kind of musicians.
Oh yeah,
it's the lifestyle. But a lot of people are thinking, they're just lunkheads with a guitar. It's like, no, these guys have depth. A lot of them, they either role play or they collect other stuff. They're cool guys.
Yeah, when we get down the line to like Slipknot, I'll tell you, I got a theory on bands and drugs and alcohol. So, oh, here we go, here we go.
So this is one I for some reason, you know, and it always surprises me when I look at some of the dates on some of these bands where I'm like, no, I was around, but for some reason I never listened to this, you know, not because of any, you know, it's just, I guess when you're young, you only have access to so much stuff, you know.
Right.
You really
and
go
this guy, King, was it King Diamond? Their
King
lead
Diamond.
singer? What an interesting guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Merciful Fate. So, you know, King Diamond might have been famous for Satanic Panic in the 1980s because I think he might have been on Geraldo with maybe Judas Priest and a few other bands at one time. I'm probably getting the shows mixed up, but you know, King Diamond promoted Satanism and whatnot. One of the first black metal bands, which we'll get to black metal, which is one of my junk food favorite band or favorite genres. But I think that was on their debut album, Melissa, which is a great album all the way through. If you like black metal, but it's super approachable. Curse of the Pharaohs, again, it was late at night on Headbangers Ball. I saw, I think, a video for Curse of the Pharaohs. And then, of course, you know, King Diamond would do, I think, a few albums with Merciful Fate, and then he would go out on his own solo. But guy could hit a high note like nobody's business. And launched, I mean, honestly, launched black metal genre with like Venom and Hellhammer and Celtic Frost and maybe Bathroy, and I can't remember. There's probably a couple others in there I'm missing, but those Danish or Norwegian bands coming out in that era, you know, they combined thrash and then took it to another level with the satanic lyrics and, you know, just pushing the envelope on what you could do and battling censorship and even getting
there's so
crazy.
So many subgenres that have sprung up, whether it be the Nordic stuff or, you know, the California sound. And that's something Will and I might approach next year, is just looking at all these different subgenres and how they differ and how they don't, where the origins and roots of them are. Because, like, you know, Merciful Fate, as we point out here, thrash metal, black metal, death metal, they were at the beginning of a lot of that. And then things sprung out from what they were doing. People were noticing and going, oh, that chord progression's wicked. I could do that. Yeah,
1982 or 83, I think, is when Melissa came out. A super cool album cover. If you haven't seen it, it's just wild. It's the skull. It's like a skull.
I was going to say,
streaking.
You know the story of the skull, right?
No, I don't know the story of the skull.
There is a skull that King Diamond would parade around stage with.
Oh yeah.
He called Melissa. That
the
was
bone
where
skull.
The name
Yes,
came from.
yeah. There you go. Yeah. See, there's so much stuff that I'm a huge metalhead, but I don't go into a lot of the wacky. I mean, the super crazy stuff like people who are obsessed with it go. I just love the album. Love the song "Curse of the Pharaohs" because, you know, of course, in the G.I. Joe genre, doing all the Egyptian mummy stuff and
Mummies
and
too,
all that.
man. That's a
Curse
classic
Pharaohs,
Joe set. Yeah.
Yep.
The old
Love
Peter Pan record of was it Mike and Joe, you know, dealing with the whole mummy thing. That's a classic.
Yeah, Adam does a really good job of using all those sound bites on his stories. I don't know how he does it,
those.
But King Diamond, you know, he's a character, man. He still sings with them. I haven't probably listened to any of their stuff and probably new stuff and probably since this came out. But this was one of the albums back in the mid 80s that I was introduced to by one of my buddies from high school who was into everything. So I remember he had an old Chevy. You guys remember when they remade the Nova, but it was kind of like an Asian car, you know?
Yes, it was a Toyota, basically.
We would drive that around.
Yes,
drive that around.
My friend had one as well. It was a Chevy Nova, but it was a Toyota, like
all night long. We drive, past curfew, and he would just put in cassette and introduce me. I was like 14 or 15, just to all this music, and he was a huge Merciful Fate fan. Dude, Bolt Thrower. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bolt Thrower.
Yes,
Bolt Thrower is a heavy band.
Yeah,
that was a band that he introduced me to as well. I'm just like, geez, oh Pete, man, these guys are heavy.
Yeah, when I used to play 40K tabletop game, Bolt Thrower was generally the background music when we were playing.
Oh, female, one of the first bands I can remember having a girl in it.
Yeah.
I think she was maybe the bass player. I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think she might have been the bass player if she was a guitarist, but you know.
But yeah, these guys, you know, I wasn't much into like like you. It's just I play what I like. I didn't, I read like Hit Parade and some of the other rags back in the day, but I didn't go deep into the weeds. Nope. Since we've been doing this show and we've had guests that say, hey, what about this band, that band? I've been doing a little bit more research, and it's fascinating.
Oh, dude, there's a really good documentary by Sam Banger. I don't know if it's called The History of Metal or something like that, but he goes in and does just look up Sam Banger. He goes and just goes through every genre, and it's really, really good. It aired on VH1, I think.
Okay.
I still follow Banger on YouTube. They do album reviews like every day. So
nice.
Oh, really?
There's just so much stuff out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love these pictures of the old,
Oh, dude, that's pre-corpse paint.
Yeah, that's great.
Pre-corpse paint King Diamond right there.
Yeah, I'd never made the connection with Cannibal Corpse, which is a favorite of our buddy Grindhead Jim. But it's like, I can see it. It makes sense.
Yeah, Cannibal Corpse is good. That's a great band. What famous for were they the band in Pet Detective, or is it Obituary? I can't remember. I think it was Cannibal Corpse.
I want to say Obituary.
Obituary, that's probably right. It might have been Obituary. Yeah.
But yeah, Curse of the Pharaohs, definitely worth a listen. If you're not familiar with Merciful Fate, check them out. This is one I was not familiar with. I did not know Immortal.
Got me.
But I like the sound.
I love Immortal. I only own this album. It's I think this is either their 7th or 9th album, and probably their 3rd album where they really embrace the black metal genre. The lead singer of Immortal has transcended the band, Abath, who is one of my favorite all-time lead frontmen. If you ever want to go down a wormhole, get on YouTube and just look.
I was going to say, these guys have their own stage personas. It's like it's totally separate from who they are when they're not on stage.
The thing about Immortal is I discovered them probably 8 years ago, right? So I didn't really I knew about Abath a little bit because he'd be in memes all the time.
Mm.
And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And then he would be in all these memes. So I just finally one day looked it up and I started listening to the music, right? And then I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then I kind of really delved deep into him. This is like, I think Immortal was the second wave of black metal to come out of Norway and that region. And there's several other bands that came along with him, but that second wave of black metal was famous. You had the church burnings. You had a couple bands who murdered each other. The bandmates murdered one of the other guy. I mean,
it was dark.
It was dark, and they took it to a whole new level. But I love Abath. I love Immortal. This song's great. The lyrics, I actually had to pull the lyrics up. So I love the intro lyrics: armored horses, gloves of steel, silver blades, time to reveal. We're the tyrants that guard the land. If you put that song on and just listen to the first minute of that song, you're amped up. You're like, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Again, great storytelling. I mean, they really get deep into it.
I had no idea. So this even existed. It's one of those things where you're listening to it and you're like, where was I? How did I miss this?
So Abath and I are around the same age. So he's maybe 8 months older than me. And I was watching an interview with him, and he was talking about when he was a kid, his dad was traveling, maybe a salesman or something like that, but he traveled a lot. He traveled to the States, and he brought back an album for him. It was Kiss Alive. And he became enamored with Gene Simmons. And his makeup is inspired by Gene Simmons. And it's corpse paint. It's what they call it, corpse paint. It's great. A lot of the bands like Gorgoroth, another band that you could do a deep dive in and be a little like, yikes,
Whoa.
you know, Gorgoroth. And but Immortal is so awesome. He's left the band, they're still going, and he's going solo, but his solo albums are awesome too. But Sons of Northern Darkness, a cool album cover. It's got a lot of really good songs. I love Tyrants. I think One by One's on there, but black metal's just one of my guilty pleasures.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got to really like music to appreciate black metal, because it is very
over the top.
Very over the top. Yeah, that's a good way
yeah.
to describe it. Yeah. I love it.
For me, this is the kind of stuff, if I'm like painting miniatures or I'm doing something Zen work type, you put this on in the background and just boom, go for it, man.
You know, Matt Pike from High on Fire and Sleep calls Abath the Elvis of black metal, which I 100% agree with. And he also has a Motorhead tribute band called the Bombers. He plays bass, because he originally played bass in Immortal. He plays guitar now in his band, but he'll wear the Motorhead, the boots, the white boots, kind of like Lemmy had, you know. Lemmy Hollis had that dude down in Texas who made those awesome boots for him. And he has a tribute band called the Bombers, and they're great.
Cool. I got to check that out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go down a deep dive for a Both.
Something a bit more commercial. I mean, most people know Slipknot. Heretic Anthem. It's well known. Love them or hate them, you probably know this song.
Yeah. Slipknot is one of those bands where, the second album, Iowa, is arguably their greatest album. I think the best album they've ever made. Vermilion, you could argue Vermilion, or not Vermilion. Yeah. No, I'm not sorry, not Vermilion. The next album they had, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but you could argue their second album the third album was better than this one. Yeah. I like this one a lot. Slipknot's one of those bands where I've seen him in concert maybe like 5 times. I've seen him at Ozfest a few times. I went and saw him in Indianapolis a couple times. Heretic Anthem's a great song. I think it's about, their dealings with the record industry, but this is peak Slipknot to me. This is when they're all drug addicts. They all had problems, demons came through in the music.
I'm not a huge Slipknot fan.
Yep.
Their theatrical stuff is a little over the top.
Mm-hmm.
There's better bands out there, but different strokes, different folks.
It's a good song, and I will say that there was a particular person in my life at the time that loved Slipknot, and as a result, I stayed away from them because it was like that person's personality, and unfortunately, I think you miss out when you do things like that. So this list and going back and listening to it, I could definitely appreciate it. But,
I was gonna say there's a couple of artists I can't listen to because they totally remind me of ex-girlfriends. So I get it.
The thing about Slipknot to me is there's a lot of things. When I think of Slipknot, I think of all these kids that would hang out at Hot Topic wearing Janko jeans with their freaking nose pierced, all the goofy. You didn't know if they were metal or they were punk or whatever, and they became like almost caricatures in a way, right? Like, and it was just like, I don't know. The music was really, really good, but they peaked, and then after that, it was terrible. And it doesn't help that your lead singer is kind of a douche in a way, because Corey Taylor's a little bit of a douche. He gets douchier every year, even when he opens his mouth. And
I was gonna say, we've talked with some people who've played with them or been around, and it's like, he's a jerk.
He's a big time jerk. Yeah. And the song though is it's a really good aggressive song. Slipknot's, I was going to tell you guys what I talked about earlier. You talk about bands that peak and you wish they wouldn't make any more albums. Kind of wish they wouldn't. I kind of wish they would have just flamed out after this album and never made one again. Because some of these bands, I think, when they get sober, they become below average, and you almost need. I hate to say this. You almost need somebody in the band like Zeppelin had, somebody to die and they never want to play together again. or something happens where they don't play anymore, because there's nothing worse than a band getting sober and then making terrible music afterwards.
Yeah, it's like
that's all you
going out on a
Yeah.
high note rather than kind of slowly dwindling.
And there's kind of that whole meme of you see, elderly guys with walkers coming up to the stage. It's like,
right.
Where are you guys going? It's like, we're the
Yeah.
band. It's like, really?
Right. Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, was their third album, which is a really easily approachable commercial album. Great album. But after that, they just sucked. It's just like they got sober and they didn't know what to do. So, but Heretic Anthem's one of those songs, I think, like when it comes on, But the thing about Slipknot is they do leave a really bad taste in your mouth. It's like they're like an ex-girlfriend. You're like, damn, I wish I could. I kind of wanted to remember you in the best possible way, but no.
Yeah. Now, one that I would say is definitely still a classic is Mastodon.
In my opinion,
this was
one of the best bands in the world. Still, never made a bad album. Yeah, never have made a bad album. Some people could argue that a few of their albums are weaker than others. I think they're awesome. They're a fantastic prog metal band. I've seen them in concert several times. I love all their albums.
They're not afraid to experiment from album to album either.
No, and
they'll change their sound.
All are superb musicians too. They're like all great musicians, great writers, and Blood and Thunder off Leviathan is one of those songs where you absolutely know what is coming when this song comes on. That first riff is awesome, and I think the lead singer of Clutch actually did one of the voiceovers for this as well at midway through the song. Is it Neil Fallon? I think, can't remember his name. If you guys aren't familiar with Clutch, are you?
Not really.
Yeah,
that much. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the lead singer of Neurosis also does some voice work for these guys. But Blood and Thunder is an amazing song off an amazing album. Yes. I mean, that whole album is amazing.
This
is what I call just like with we were talking with Lawrence from A Punk with Toys. It's like, this is happy, angry music for me.
Oh man.
If I'm in a bad mood or I'm in a funk, I'll either put on some old school punk or I'll put on some heavy metal like this. You can't stay in a bad mood when you're listening to this. You get pumped.
Have you guys checked out the video for this that debuted on Headbangers Ball? It's hilarious. They're all wearing Shriner gear.
Yeah, God, it's been a while since I've seen it.
The video is one of the greatest metal videos, in my opinion, in the world. It's freaking awesome. They're like at an old. It feels like they're at an old shrine.
Like a lodge.
Lodge playing Blood and Thunder. Everybody's in Halloween costumes. It seems like it's just, dude. But Mastodon is one of those bands which never makes. They're kind of like Tool, and Tool is controversial with a lot of people. I know a lot of people shit on Tool, but Mastodon's never made a bad album. Their newest album, Hushed and Grim, if you haven't listened to that yet,
no,
I listen to that every morning when I get to work. Every morning, it's freaking amazing. But Leviathan and Blood and Thunder are just awesome. I love Mastodon.
So good.
Oh, and I want to, before my Swiss cheese memory loses it, I want to shout out too. On Jeff's channel from back in the day, he refurbished some mechanical elves for a Christmas display. That is so cool.
I did. Yeah. It's
definitely check that out.
Yeah. It's a great story. Yeah. Put the video in the link to this if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you guys, you want to hear the story real quick about it?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Man, when I was a kid growing up, there's a law office on our, where I live, there's a town square, right? Here in the Midwest, we all have a town square where the courthouse is in the middle and you got roads around it. When I was a kid, this law office had these elves made by Hamburger Company out of Brooklyn, New York, I think. And they were mechanical animatronic elves. There was 5 of them. And every Christmas, when they would put those out, raise the blinds in the window, you knew Christmas was here, right?
It was an event.
Right. Over the years, they originally had these, I think, got them back in like the mid 60s. So This is, you know, the 70s and 80s for me. But over the years, the elves fell into disrepair. You know, they never took care of them. They stored them improperly. So every few years, one less elf would appear.
Oh.
So my wife's mom was a secretary and a legal clerk at this law office. So I approached her one day. I said, hey, you know, what's going on with these elves? And she told me they're all like crumbling and falling apart. So I went up there and I talked to the lawyer who owned the office. I said, hey, show me your worst elf. And it was literally the head and 2 feet and then the animatronic portion.
Yeah, because they were originally made with like what, a wooden structure and like paper mache and then felt.
It was a latex. It was a latex skin.
Oh,
okay.
So it oxidized and fell apart. So I said, give me your worst elf. Took him home, glued what I could back together, and then rebuilt the rest with aluminum foil and paper mache. Got it working, and then I restored each individual elf that year to get them all ready for Christmas in 2019. And then they debuted and all the elves were working again.
Man, and that was awesome. A fantastic video where you show the whole process of getting these broken pieces, figuring out the mechanics of how they're supposed to operate, figuring out how to reimagine them and make them work.
Yep.
It's so cool, man. I love that.
Best project I've ever done in my whole life, because, you know, we have 8,000 people in our town. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people who came up to me in like Walmart, the gas station, restaurants, and said, hey, I saw what you did. Thank you very much. Those are from my childhood. That meant so much to me. One lady cried. I'm like, this is weird.
No, seriously, though, you think about it. In every family, there's that tradition of going in the attic or going somewhere and getting those Christmas displays.
Yeah, right on.
You know, the light up Santa or the nativity scene. It's part of our history. And those public displays that everybody used to have, the big storefronts, you don't see those as much anymore. So it's definitely very
the world
cool.
is full of a lot of people that see something like those deteriorating elves and they say someone should do something about that.
Yep.
But then there's certain people like you that say, I'm going to do something about that.
Yeah.
And succeed. So,
you know, awesome. I wrote him an old fashioned letter. I wrote him a handwritten letter when I first asked to do the elves. I'm like, I'm just going to write this guy a handwritten letter. You know, I'm not going to text him. I'm not going to call him. I'm going to write him a letter in the mail. And I did. And then he mailed me back. So
that's awesome. Cool. We'll definitely put a link to that video in the description below.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And speaking of, you know, just work of art, man,
album cover. Yes.
In addition to, you know, awesome song, but, you know, they did this artwork with the album cover and they released a tour edition CD that, in addition to the main album, contained videos for Iron Tusk and Blood and Thunder, and also came with a slipcase that showed the complete cover artwork rather than just the detail of the whale shown on the standard edition. This is also the cover for the vinyl edition, and a video for Sea Beast was completed in 2006. Yeah, the cover art and booklet was done by Paul Romano, and the White Tower scene is artwork inspired by a revamped version of Martin Heem's 16th century interpretation of the Pharaohs of Alexandria. And the wave is a, you know, inspired by the Great Wave of Kanagawa.
Kanagawa, that very classic Japanese style. That it's just awesome. I love these album covers, man.
And this whole album, you know, a couple slides earlier, is it's loosely based on Moby Dick, and you know, you see that in the you know, or you hear it rather in the songs, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's one of their concept albums. You know, they would go on to do their follow-up album to this was a concept album. Had some great songs on it as well. I saw them on tour in a small little club for that album, but they played a lot of the majority songs off this album. But this artist here that did this cover I think he did their first album, their second album, and then their third, and then they go on and then they'd have different artists. One I've featured on my channel, Skinner. He's done a couple album covers, I think 1 or 2 for him as well. But yeah, the art of their albums is super synonymous with them.
It's fascinating. It reminds me of, you know, back in the day, you'd get lost in this artwork. You just stare at it while listening to the album, and that whole album experience, which has been lost to, you know, modern times. You don't really have that as much, but you know, this accompanying artwork was always so inspiring and so interesting to just look at all the intricate details and, you know, little things kind of hidden in there, and just really this alone blew me away. It's not my favorite, and I know you're probably going to figure out which one was my favorite by now, because there's not much left. But yeah, this was one of my favorites. Definitely a close runner-up.
Yeah, Mastodon's amazing. Love them to death. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a huge Tool fan.
Yep.
You are not. You're not a Tool.
You're not.
No, I love Tool. As a matter of fact, it's one of the last concerts I saw was a Tool concert with my buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is their 3rd album. I've never seen Tool in concert because they're so weird. You know, I mean, their shows are super expensive. But this is one of the bands that I kind of grew up with in the 90s. Loved Tool. This album here, I was in college at the time when this came out, and I would listen to this album on the way back and forth when I commuted my early part of college. It is a great album. And a lot of people shit on Tool because I don't know why they do, because again, I don't think they've ever made a bad album. They're weird. They don't make albums very much.
Yeah, weird definitely is a word I would think of.
Very much weird. All of them are amazing musicians. Maynard's an odd dude, but I love him to death. Black belt in jiu-jitsu, you know, a cool guy. He's got there's a mystique about Tool.
As a matter of fact, when this video came up, like the next suggested video was someone did like a video essay on why people, you know, think this and that about Tool or whatever. And I kind of auto-played after, and I started listening to it. I didn't finish the whole thing, but all I have to say is, you know, enjoy the music for what it is, and don't get too into it, because a lot of the stuff was, you know, they were saying in that thing that people saw meaning in things that maybe he put in there just to mess with people, or just
they screw with people quite a bit. You know, Eulogy, the urban legend around Eulogy forever was that it was about L. Ron Hubbard and the Church of Scientology. And I think Maynard's debunked that a few times, but has he? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, one of his deals is he likes to screw with people.
Yeah,
he does.
He's just that guy.
If this means something to you, then it does. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Yeah, it's like
what I love about Tool, and it's the same thing I love about Mastodon. They have always stayed together, and they love the craft, and they take the time to always put out a good album. You can't say the same thing for Slipknot. You can't say the same thing for maybe Sabbath. Obviously, some of the other bands that have been on this, like Merciful Fate, have obviously broke up, never achieved the glory that they wanted to. Immortal, same thing. But Tool and Mastodon have always been together. Nobody in the band has died of a drug overdose. Nobody has had any issues other than maybe little minor things. They're always good people. You know,
maybe I haven't given Tool a fair shake. I'm going to give them a second chance.
It's not for everyone, but it's good, weird stuff. I like weird stuff, man. Like, the weirder it is, like, the more I'm into it in a lot of cases.
I listen to Tool when I'm at work and I'm doing, like, AutoCAD stuff. Because Tool, like, just focuses my brain. You know, I don't know if it's the math that's in the music, whatever, but it focuses my brain. Yeah. I like Eulogy. I think this album, Enema, is the best album they ever made. Other people could argue. I love Rosetta Stone off of 10,000 Days, another really good song. I like a lot of prog stuff, but I like Tool quite a bit, you know. But you have to. It's weird because you don't want to tell people you like Tool, because everybody's like, "Oh, you just like Tool because you think they're you just want to sound like you're cool, and you're like, no, man, I just like the music,
There was a
even,
time.
even the name, anima, the etymology of that term. It's like you go down some deep rabbit holes trying to understand that.
Yeah, that was the next slide where the title, anima or enema, is a combination of anima,
not enema. That's
Latin
something different.
for soul, and and also a term and also enema, the medical procedure involved injecting fluids into your rectum. So
indeed,
and this is not even,
that sums them up.
This isn't even my favorite song off that album. No, I mean, I think it's the most profound song off the album to me. But my favorite song off the album is obviously it's a hooker with a penis. I love that song. It's so aggressive, man. It's like, he's basically saying, screw you to all you people that think we're selling out,
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's nothing worse for a band to be called a sellout, right? Like you don't want to end up, you don't, if you're a metal band, you don't want to end up being Metallica.
Yeah.
No,
you don't want to end up being that.
Corporate.
You don't want to be that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be that. And Tool's never been that, to their credit. I mean, they're who they are. Like them or love them or not. Oh, here's my band.
Say, man, this is it. This is the one.
I was going to say, this is the one Will was like, woo! Yeah,
blew my freaking mind. The Falconist. This song is amazing.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going. Yeah.
No, it's just everything about it. I love the artwork.
Checks all
I love the
sweet album cover, sweet music, cool story. Yeah.
So I've been a High on Fire fan since probably day one. In my opinion, along with Mastodon, they're one of the best bands in the world. Still are, they've had maybe a one or two lineup changes, but Matt Pike, in my opinion, is a real rock star.
And
He's
this
a true rock star.
2015.
Right? Yeah. I think it's their 6th or 7th studio album. And they, again, like Mastodon, they've never made a bad album. Every album is great.
Some of the lyrics in this awesome poster that they had for one of their shows. Dude. Look at that. That's just. And I took some of the lyrics and I put them on here because I just.
Oh my gosh. The opening riff of that song. How awesome is that?
As soon as I keep listening to this one, like I said, every playlist always has one that stands out for me, but like this song is like my new favorite. It is like amazing.
So the Art of Self-Defense, I think that might have been their first album, maybe, was a great album. And then each subsequent album got, in my opinion, better and better. Luminiferous is awesome. Every song on Luminiferous is great. If you've never listened to Dark Side of the Compass or Carcosa, both are freaking awesome.
I'm going to.
They're a true dyed-in-the-wool rock band. They are everything that I love about rock. I've seen High on Fire twice. Most recently at the Dark Lords Festival. It was a beer festival in
nice.
Indiana prior to COVID. And the thing about Matt Pike and I are about the same age, kind of like Abath. We're all around the same age, and I kind of identify with those guys. But I was sitting there drinking a beer. And when I go to this Dark Lords Beer Festival in Munster, Indiana, it's up there near Chicago, I would paper mache myself a Viking drinking helmet. I should have brought it for this.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Actually, I have it. I'll grab it real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on, just wait 1 second, okay?
Okay. Yeah, totally worth it. I definitely want to see it.
This was a band that wasn't on my radar, but after listening to Jeff's playlist, I'm like, holy crap, why didn't I know about these guys?
No idea. Well, the 2015 thing is like, I'm like, this 2015, this is recent. And it feels like, or sounds like something that's, 40 years old,
Yes. There we go. Love it.
That is awesome. And you made that out of paper mache?
I made that out of paper mache.
Yeah, that's awesome. Badass. Yeah.
So every year, for probably 4 years, I would do this thing called a Viking drinking party in my basement. And we'd play black metal, High on Fire, all different metal bands. And I would always do a Viking drinking helmet. And then one year I took it to Dark Lords Festival. So I'm sitting there, picture me sitting there on the fence, drunk, wearing this helmet, and then Matt Pike walks by, and at the time, I had a beard down to here.
Oh,
Matt Pike walks by to the VIP tent, looks at me, I look at him, we both nod each other's heads, and he walks off, and that's all. That was it. That was great.
We should probably give a shout out to Jeff's Beer 30 in the Hooligans pub he has.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, watched over by an excellent picture of his grandfather. I love that picture, man.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
yep. No, it's my great grandfather.
Okay.
Yep. Great grandfather. So the Vikings Rican helmet is synonymous with the bar. Another funny story about that was I wore this that year, and then the brewery who hosted came out with a beer the next year that actually looks like me wearing this helmet with my big beard.
Nice.
That's awesome.
You can find it on my Instagram.
Yeah, they
I'll send you guys a picture of it here tonight after we get done. But High on Fire, back to them. The Falconist is an amazing song. It's an amazing band.
Yeah,
I love them so much. I want to see them again.
For me, when I heard this, and again, I was telling Will, this hadn't been on my radar. It reminded me of classic Iron Maiden as far as good storytelling, the epicness of the story that's in the song. I totally get it with these guys.
Right on.
Is that fair?
This was from 2015. I thought this was a band that was from the 80s. Like it just
Oh, and if if this is going to be, Wilhelm, this is going to be your gateway to these guys. Their next album, Electric Messiah, is a really good album. I mean, I love the Steps of Ziggurat song. Freaking, I listened to that probably 1,000 times. Probably, they cover a lot of really good stuff. Like Dark Side of the Compass goes into viral vortices. Like the Bermuda Triangle and stuff. And the Falconist, you find meaning in all their songs, but they're just so cool. They're cool dudes. They've stayed together. They make great music. They make great art. Like, who doesn't love that?
Just love it. Love the lyrics. Love the song.
And he's a real rock star. He sounds like Lemmy Kilmister. He's like a Lemmy. Okay, here we go. This is a great cap.
This is the one that threw me because
boy.
Well, one, it's not just Sleep, Dope Smoker, right? Jerusalem and Dope Smoker.
Dope Smoker, Jerusalem, yep.
There are two versions of the third studio album, right? And by American stoner doom band Sleep. The former title was released in 1999, and the later was released in 2003.
Yep.
So, I just started reading about this, and then the music of these albums comprises of.
If you want to listen to it in its entirety, put aside an hour or two to
one
really
of the
delve
first
into
comments. I guess a started comment is someone wrote, "There are no bad tracks on this album," and then obviously everyone it's like a troll post because it's the only track on the album, or it could be split up. But 1 hour long. I haven't listened to the whole thing.
You haven't?
Right halfway through it. And then. But it was just so it was released 3 times actually.
Yep.
So you had Sleep, Jerusalem. So they recorded this. The company didn't like it, or they weren't going to release it. So then they kind of went around them and released it under a different name. Is that what it was? And then.
Yes, I've heard a lot of different stories. There's a sweet myth surrounding this album. It's garnered a pretty wicked cult following. I mean, Sleep is Matt Pike from High on Fire's first band. He still play. I mean, they still play. Him and Al Cicero still play. They just released an album out of nowhere a few years back. Like, just they didn't tell anybody. They released it on 420.
Oh wow!
And it's a really good album as well. But the myth, there's a myth around this album, right? So they had their second album was Sleep Holy Mountain, which is really good. It's got a lot of really good songs on it. They're quintessential stoner rock doom band in the kind of in the like Sabbath in a way, inspired by that, little low guitar riffs. And they got an advancement of a certain amount of money to record this album. It's a third studioed album, right? Because Holy Mountain had been so successful. And I don't know if the story is true or not, but what I've heard different takes, and I think Matt Pike's kind of cleared it up, but I can't remember. But they didn't do anything. And then they came down to like, they had to record this album. So they recorded this album. It was one song, an hour and 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, originally titled, I don't know if the original title was Jerusalem or Dope Smoker. I can't remember, but they gave it to the record label, and they're like, "What? What is this shit? We can't do this." So it never got released, and then I don't know if they got the rights to it, but they eventually were able to release it. I think under Jerusalem.
It was like, it wasn't even like an official release. It was like a bootleg almost.
Yes, it was a bootleg release, and then they were able to remaster it, release it again under the Dope Smoker name, and then you get your third picture there, which is one of the best pictures of all time.
I got them backwards on that slide there, but
the caravan.
Yeah, that's Dune, right? Or what is it?
No, it's just their that's the Weedian. The character there is the Weedian, and that's their guy. And I love this song. I've listened to this song so many times. When I was making those or redoing those Christmas elves, I listened to Dope Smoker almost exclusively.
Oh wow!
And after they released this album and the song, they broke up. Kind of, they went their own separate ways. They're kind of dejected. Matt Pike would go form High on Fire.
Oh,
and
okay.
Al would go form a band called Ohm, which if look them up, at Ohm, I think they have an album called Advantic Songs. Amazing if you like a really good like Middle Eastern style influenced stoner doom music. Ohm's great. But I love Sleep. This is one of the best songs to me. I know I'm about to sound like a cliche, and there's probably going to be people out there like, oh, he's just saying that, but no, I think it's a great song. It's clever. You would record one song an hour and 6 minutes long, and there's in the song. You haven't listened to the whole song?
I haven't listened to the whole song, but I was listening to it as I was working on this, and it was just like, and as I was reading it, then I looked and I was like, I mean, I was probably, how long is it before you even hear someone sing?
Maybe 20 minutes in, maybe
20 minutes in, and I got to like the point where they just start. When they start singing it, though, like that's what snapped me out of it, and I tabbed out, and I went, "Holy shit!" I let the song end it, and a new song began, and then I realized this song's an hour and 10 minutes long.
I think the opening lyrics like to run out of life with bong in hand, maybe. But Al's voice is so grovelly and deep. It's if you're into that type of music, that doom stoner rock. This is your jam. I mean, there's going to be people that don't like the song. I mean, it's an hour and 6 minutes long, but I think it's great. They just reissued it on vinyl, I think, recently, maybe on 420 this year, where I think they had an actual marijuana leaf pressed into the vinyl.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
really?
But
yeah,
Sleep and High on Fire are two of my all-time favorite bands because it's each. How I set up the list was I started out with a band like Black Sabbath, which was kind of like my gateway into metal. And then you've got different things like King Diamond, and Merciful Fate. That was a band I clearly remember with the Satanic Panic. Slayer and Megadeth were when I was just starting high school.
Yep.
And I was able to really focus on the music I really liked. So I liked a lot of that thrash stuff, Testament, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, not so much Anthrax, but I had a lot of friends that liked it. Then I moved into the 90s with Tool, where, I kind of was getting away from those bands because a lot of them were either getting heavier like Slayer or like Metallica was growing to be more commercial and radio friendly. Like when they released Load and they cut their hair and they just kind of became like an art band. And then, Slipknot was that new metal where, you had like a return to this hardcore metal, but that just flamed out or became like a cliche of itself. And then, at the time, Mastodon was coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, and they were a prog metal band, and their first album was heavy as shit. And then each album got better and better and better. And at the same time, back in the early 2000s, you had Sleep, would disband, and Pike would become High on Fire, and then they would just make Face Melter, stoner doom rock.
Yeah. Which is kind of like the through line that I noticed was like a lot of these albums were just that. It wasn't just the song. It was like the entire album. And, you know, I was just wondering, like, that's what I noticed about it was a lot of these aren't where you just pick one hit off of it. Because I think on every slide we went through, you were like, yeah, this song's great, but so is this, and this.
Yeah.
You know, and so much of it that these are like all albums you could just put on and kind of just go right through. It's got this story, it's got this, you know, like theme that runs, and you don't want to just listen to one whatever pop hit, you know what I mean, and then switch to the next thing.
Yeah, you know, with like Immortal, you know, Sons of Northern Darkness, I think they had one more album with Abath after that, and then they went on their separate ways, and he has a really good two really good solo albums that are really good. You know, with him, he's one of those timeless guys that rock needs as well, kind of like Lemmy Kilmister. You need characters in your music genres. You know, with everything nowadays being so manufactured, with people, you know, paying $200,000 or whatever to see a Taylor Swift concert, or $20,000. You know, and I'm not gonna crap on all that music because it has its place as well. Guys like us, we need heroes.
Exactly.
You know?
And I was going to say too, is that there's like a story and like a journey and like, to me, a sense of adventure, and all of these things that like, or inspires a sense of adventure or discovery, you know, within them. Like there's.
How much would you say, Jeff, this inspires when you're doing your photo stories or when you're creating customs? I'm sure some of the music here will inspire where you're going with a project.
Ton of it. I have a Bluetooth speaker. I was telling Wilhelm while you were offline. When I was doing those elves, I was exclusively listening to Dope Smoker. Like Dope Smoker, when I'm in my workshop doing customs, it's usually Mastodon or Dope Smoker from Sleep, or maybe High on Fire, probably a few different songs of theirs. But I'm usually listening to a more stoner doom stuff or Mastodon proggy stuff. Black metal is usually like Immortals when I'm drinking. You know, if I'm in my bar here and my wife and son are doing something and I have a night where I can just kind of chill, I'm on YouTube in my bar and I'm going through complete black metal. I'm watching like Behemoth. If you guys are not familiar with Behemoth, that is a dark road to go down. Behemoth's great. Blow Your Trumpets, Gabriel is an amazing song. They're heavy though. They're real heavy. And they've almost become a little bit of a cliche too for the black metal community, but they're really good. But black metal is what I do when I drink. When I'm in the shop working, it's usually stoner rock, doom rock. If I'm just at work, I got a couple buddies at work who are a little bit older than me. We talk a lot of hair metal. I've developed an appreciation for hair metal that I didn't usse to have.
Yeah.
You know?
I used
hair
to
metal's
like
great.
outright reject it based on you know, I don't know, just whatever. It just didn't appeal to me. But going back and listening now, I'm like, actually, these guys are pretty good, you know.
Yeah, I always laugh. I always say, like, you know, Paul Stanley's had both of his hips replaced, I think, and that's because of the 1980s. All those little karate kicks he was doing in those goofy videos. But I love, you know, hair metal has a really good, like I said, I'm like you, I've went back and I've really appreciated hair metal. And then, you know, what's funny is with a lot of this music that I had on here, I'll start listening to it and then I'll go and look up stuff on like Wikipedia, and then I'll find another band. And I've discovered so many bands from the 80s that I never really would have listened to. You know, I'll go back and listen to a lot of old school Candlemass. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. I think they're out of Scandinavia. Their first albums are really, really good. You'll discover
there were bands that like you just didn't give a chance for reasons that you
just didn't know, right?
Yeah, you just didn't know. You're just like, no, I don't want to listen to that. And or there's a person associated with it, and you're like, if he likes it, then I don't like it. You know?
Yeah, I was always at a disadvantage too, because a lot of the kids I lived in a small town in the Midwest. A lot of the kids who lived in the bigger cities would be familiar with a lot of more obscure bands. All we had here in the Midwest were kids in denim jackets with back patches. You know, it'd be like, oh, there's be a Master of Puppets patches, and I never had any of that stuff. I just listened to stuff privately. I mean, I listened to, I think, Megadeth, Rest in Peace, on my Fisher-Price record player.
Nice.
The vinyl, you know.
Yeah, it was like the denim, either the denim jacket or the denim vest covered in patches became like a uniform for hair metal guys for a while. And it's funny.
I would say the genre. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we need to wrap it up.
Okay, yeah.
But we could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah. Let's do it again sometime for sure.
Yeah, definitely come back. Check out Beer 30 on Jeff's channel. Check out some of his customs. Definitely check out the elves. We'll put those links. Check out the photo stories that he's been collaborating with Adam and his solo work. Just fun stuff. We love talking with you. We love watching you hang out in your workshop and come up with the next crazy thing, man. It's always cool.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you contacting me and letting me come on the Infinite Playlist. It is an honor to be here. Cheers to you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Love that cup.
I can't wait to do it again, dude.
Yeah, thank you, man. That was awesome.
We'll have you back. Will, Jeff, have a great one. Hopefully my signal won't crap out again.
Keep living the adventure, guys. Keep living that adventure.
And on that note, let's play them out.